This workshop is the first of many that we have coming up over the course of the next few weeks to help engage and educate parents as everyone's at home and entering this very different summer than what I'm sure everyone anticipated or planned for with having your children at home. Before we begin and I pass things on to Tara, I just wanted to do a quick housekeeping. We are going to be keeping everyone on mute throughout the webinar. There is a chat function at the bottom of your screen, so any questions that you have, please just enter them in there. Our team will be monitoring it throughout, and we'll have a Q&A at the end of the session where you can ask specific questions or kind of loop back to questions that you asked throughout the webinar. Have your settings set to speaker view so that Tara comes up rather than the gallery view. She'll be sharing her screen to present a presentation. And additionally, we'll be sending a recording of the webinar to attendees afterwards. So if anyone has to pop out or misses something, don't worry, you'll get everything afterwards. And you can also contact us or Tara following the webinar to ask any questions that you may have. So I am going to pass things on to Tara, who's gonna kind of take it away from here.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here and be able to hopefully shed some light on some social skills strategies that we can work on. My name, as you know, is Tara Karen. I started out in the field years ago as a teacher, and then I discovered ABA, or Applied Behavior Analysis, and kind of changed my life. I learned so much through it, and I've been able to fortunately work in schools, in both private and public schools, and then I started in insurance-based ABA therapy for children with autism in New York. So being able to work home-based and community-based has really been able to help us just help families and children both in school and outside of school. So that's something that's been really wonderful, and along those years, I've picked up some great skills, and I'm hoping to share them all with you today. So we will get started. And again, we just type your questions in the chat, and at the end we'll go over it. While I can't ever give very specific advice without ever meeting a child or a family, I will try to be as thorough as possible. So let's see, I have to just share my screen. And let's do this one. And I'll move this up, sorry, that's my niece and nephew. Okay, so we're gonna get started and teach some strategies for teaching social skills. And I'm just going to stop my camera so that you guys can see. Why am I having trouble with this today? Always something. I apologize. Let me see, stop video. Okay, sure. Nope, that's not working. Okay. I'll just get started. You guys will have to just deal with my face. Okay, so a little bit about Achieve Beyond. I am our clinical and operations director, and Achieve Beyond's been around for a while. We were formerly known as Bilinguals, and we've been around, this is our 25th anniversary, so that is good. We provide early intervention, preschool, school age services, so ABA, speech, PT, OT, as well as behavior intervention services and evaluations and service coordination. And then a few years ago, a long time ago, we started to expand, and as different states have in their insurance mandates, we started exploring that option, and it's really proven to be beneficial to our families. So we are now in California, in Los Angeles, and we just also opened it in San Francisco. New York, we are in Long Island, the 5 boroughs, as well as Hudson Valley and Albany. We're in Virginia, Tennessee, New Jersey, Connecticut, Florida, and we actually just started in Delaware as well. Our Long Island program, we provide in-home ABA. We accept most major health insurance, and we actually are opening our very first New York clinic in Melville in late August, early September. So I'll get more into things. If you're interested, there's this email or phone number, but let's get started with a little bit about what we're going to go over today. So we're going to talk a little bit about reinforcement, about the foundation of social skills, joint attention, responding to name, your typical development of social skills, because if you are aware of the development, then we can start focusing on activities to help promote development of it. The different types of play, play dates, reciprocal conversations, and considering social norms. So play is the foundation of everything, right? Children learn how to play, and that's how they're learning all sorts of social rules and norms. They set the foundation for developing social skills. Research has shown that play skills may help develop also not just, social skills, but cognitive, linguistic, and emotional development. So we want to start teaching play skills as early as possible. A lot of children will pick this up and just start imitating what they're seeing. But sometimes some of our kids need a little bit more help. So there are some prerequisite skills that we need to teach before we just go and put two kids together and expect them to learn how to converse. So reinforcement is one of the cornerstone properties of ABA. And what reinforcement means is that it increases the likelihood of a behavior occurring again. So this is something that we all have. We've all been through this, and we continue to do this. We need reinforcement in order to be motivated to do anything. Otherwise, we would probably just sit on the couch all day, every day. So reinforcement is crucial when we're teaching new skills. So not just social skills, but everything. And it comes in many forms. Social praise, just saying, oh, great job. Even as an adult, we need that social praise from our peers or our bosses or our significant others. Edibles, so this is what's called a primary reinforcer. It's something that, food is one of our original reinforcers. We try to get away from it as we get older, otherwise everything is contingent on food, and that's not a healthy relationship. For some kids, stickers may be a reinforcement. For others, it doesn't matter. The iPad, I think that's the biggest reinforcer for all of us, and everything that comes with it. I know that, like, if I really work hard all day, I allow myself to play some silly, stupid games on my iPad at night. So that's a reinforcer for kids and adults alike. And money is the biggest reinforcer for us adults, right? The money itself doesn't, that piece of paper doesn't really do anything, but it's what we can buy with it and what we can do. So reinforcement continues throughout all of our lives. And we always have to kind of think what's a reinforcer for me may not be for you. And what you think your child may like, maybe they don't, or maybe they like it, but it's not enough to make them want to continue to do something. So what we try to do is we always try to pair new activities with items that we already know that our child likes or is reinforced by, and that's how we teach them new things. Same thing with what we do, right? So whatever we like to do, if we want to teach ourselves or work hard on something, we add something that we like. A lot of times you'll have Healthy Wage or different diet company, will say, okay, well, reward yourself after a certain amount of weight loss. So you want to pair maybe getting a manicure and pedicure with losing a little weight, and then that means that you're going to be more motivated to do something. So our typical development of play skills goes from solitary play to parallel play to associative play and then cooperative play. And we're going to get into what each types of these play means, as well as how they help your child to learn social skills. So in solitary play, it makes sense. It's solo, right? So this is where a child will play through toy manipulation. So some of our kids will just take a toy and kind of just play and with it, almost stim with it, and that is the way that they want to play, and that's okay, and we do want to allow for that, but we also want to teach them how to use it functionally as well. So functional play skills may be not just playing with a teacup, but pretending to drink from it. We want to teach through imitation. Imitation is a great way to teach. So pushing a train back and forth, and now you do it, and then teaching that child to do that. Rocking, feeding a baby, brushing the baby's hair, petting a stuffed animal, making an animal jump, bouncing, rolling, throwing a ball, banging on a drum. So all of these can be taught through imitation, or should be taught through imitation. And then this way the child then takes that on and they start doing that themselves. You want to teach various ways how toys can be played with. A lot of our children on the spectrum have what's called rigidity, right? So things have to be done a certain way. A lot of adults I know that do not also very rigid. So we want to teach flexibility as early on as possible. So let's teach different ways that a toy can be played with. Even if it's supposed to be that you just drink tea from a teacup, what else can we do with it? We want to teach that flexibility. If during this time, those sensory behaviors of hand flapping, gazing, or scripting, during your play time, you want to see if you can redirect it. If you can't, take a timeout, let your child go and enjoy the toy however they want to, and then say my turn and redirect your child to try to go and imitate you. I think one of the things that is so important is, again, these automatic behaviors or these sensory seeking behaviors are important because they help your child feel calm, or this is how they express their happiness. And so we don't want to eliminate that, but we do want to teach when is appropriate and when's not appropriate, and your turn, my turn. And you always want to, again, follow your child's motivation. You're learning as you follow your child and see what they're into. That also becomes a reinforcer. And then when you know what are reinforcers, now you know, okay, well, my child really likes this, so let me teach them something with this. Or let me teach another skill, and then we can rely on going and giving them that reinforcer. So again, with teaching solitary play, it's all about imitation. So I'm just going to get this video ready before I bring it up. And so this is an example of block imitation. So block imitation, right? We're showing them what to do, with the child what to do, saying do this, and then have them do it. So very, nice way to just go and get your child to engage with you, but also imitate. So the next phase is parallel play. And parallel play, sometimes people rush this phase because they see that their child is engaging almost with another child. We don't want to rush this. Parallel play is when children are playing near each other with their own materials, but they're doing their own things still. And this is okay. This is a good part. This is what every child goes through. So this is important because it teaches your child to share space with another child while engaging in their solitary play. And it teaches social awareness and leads to interactions with one another. So a child may be doing their own thing next to someone, but then you're going to start seeing, eventually they're going to start looking over and seeing what they're doing, and then maybe starting to imitate some of that as well. You're going to teach your child to engage in activities like coloring, blocks, Play-Doh in solitary, and then use them as the basis of parallel play. And engage in parallel play with your child. Pair your the peers around you also with reinforcement, or around your child with reinforcement. So this way, your child and you can be both playing with Play-Doh next to each other. You want to try to engage them, but also understand that it's okay for your child to be playing near someone, because that is great and you're going to get there. So again, I like examples. So I'm going to bring on the next example. So this is, again, these two little ones just playing right next to each other. And it's important that they just need to be near each other, doing their own thing. And you can, eventually start going and giving one of the kids something, and then start saying, okay, well, now give this to this person, or, hand this to them. So that this way now they're interacting a little more, but it is a great part of play that is parallel play. So just being near each other and playing with toys. And see, now they're kind of engaging a little bit. You see that they're looking. That's a great sign. So we'll move on to the next video, the next part. When I talked about pairing peers with reinforcement, adults improve children's lives. And so children are used to the adults giving them good things. They're not used to other kids doing that. So what we need to do is we need to think about now having other peers or peers going and doing that. Because adults give access to children the most preferred items and activities, for children with autism, other kids may not provide any value whatsoever because they may even be they may just not want to be near them because the children may be loud or disruptive. They can run around, they could take their toys. They're not predictable. Oftentimes, as parents and therapists, we're very predictable. A child knows what we're going to do or say. They know if they ask for this, they're going to get it. Whereas with another child, they may not get that. And so that's difficult for children with autism. So in that respect, what we want to do is we want to pair these peers with reinforcement. And so how we can do that is when a peer or a sibling approaches your child, provide social praise or edibles for those of that appropriate behavior. You're going to then prompt your child to request the favorite items from the peer. So the peer is now being seen as the giver of good things. If your child is unable to request, prompt your child to simply take the preferred item from the peer. So you're going to go and whisper in the peer's ear, like, okay, ask, tell Johnny to go and say this, and then tell them to go and hand it to him. So in this respect, the peer would hold out their hand with the preferred item. The caregiver says, take the goldfish from Johnny. So we may need to physically prompt a child to take the item from the peer at first, but we're going to be pairing them together so that this way this peer or this sibling is now the giver of good things. And that's going to start a bond, right? So then this child is going to know, okay, good things are coming from this person. I'm going to go to them more. And that's how we can go and pair peers. So the next phase after that is called associative play. And this is when children begin to interact with each other. So they could give and take items. Sharing is an important thing, part of associative play. They're still playing independently. So they still have their own things going on, but they're aware of their peers and they're starting to interact with them. So in this phase of associative play, children may be borrowing or sharing blocks with each other, but they're building their own block tower, not something all together. And so we can teach this by practicing taking turns with different toys, practice pushing a car and ball back and forth to each other. And it could require prompting, but we want to always reinforce. That's the big name of the game. Reinforce. Any behavior that you want to see again and again, you're going to reinforce it. And so here's an example of associative play. Again, just so you're aware of what it looks like. So they're each kind of doing their own thing. She's cooking her food, he's cooking his. He's watching her, she's watching him. And he's really learning from her what she's doing, kind of repeating it. And see how they're sharing the materials. It's not always going to go smoothly. There's definitely, sometimes that they're going to get into each other's space. But this is your good associative play. So while we're talking about associative play is when we should really start teaching turn taking. And so turn taking is very important. We don't want a child to always be the taker, but we don't also want them to always be the giver as well. And that's an important thing that I think sometimes we forget, is that we don't want our child to just always give up everything that they have to somebody else. That's not fair. So teaching turn taking at this part is really important. And so one of this video where we're going to show, I don't know if you guys can hear this as well. So again, we're teaching the child to, before we even get into anything, we're going and explaining what is expected. And I think that's one of the most important parts about teaching your child, working with your child, is give them what is expected. Give them a breakdown of what we're going to be doing. So she went and said, we're going to play this game. When it's your turn, you're going to do this. Then you're going to go and give the dice to the next person and say, your turn. And then prompt them through it. So, okay, you finish your turn. Great. What are you going to do? And ask those questions. Oh, I'm going to give the dice. Yes. And then what are you going to say? Or if they need that prompting, say your turn. And they're going to go through it. So it's really important to give the expectations, not just what you aren't doing. Don't say, oh, no, it's not your turn. Say, okay, it's Johnny's turn next. This is it. Then it's my turn. Then it's your turn. So always giving the expectations and what's supposed to happen next is really important. So once we start building this foundation, then we start getting into cooperative play. And this is where you start to see children that have 2 or more kids, 3 kids, now exchanging ideas about a game or toy that they're playing with at that moment in time. It really will start out with, a few seconds to a few minutes at a time, and then build into games. And it can take place almost anywhere, a playground, a classroom, a play date. It's important because kids begin to understand respecting each other's property, asking permission to play with others' things or to join a game. And so this cooperative play is when they're interacting fully and learning all of these things. It's not going to go smoothly all the time, but this is something that children are learning. And so you may need to prompt your child to ask their peer for items or to share items or to practice turn taking. So, kids don't always just learn it on their own. They definitely need help for sure. And so cooperative play in this example is a bunch of kids in a classroom working together. And some of them are working on their own, right? They're kind of playing with different things. And then some of the kids over here are starting to go and interact and ask each other for things. And so, make sure this works. So again, most of them are working on their own, but then you're seeing some of them kind of go and give suggestions. I'm going to do this. So that's like an example of, again, it doesn't have much structure. They're not doing a lot of, play that works together so they have a common outcome, but they're interacting with each other. And they're beginning to understand, I can't just take what I want. I need to ask for it. Or if I have, my toy jumping on theirs and Johnny gets upset about that, well, I'm learning that I can't just do that. And so these are all important parts of cooperative play. So you can teach cooperative play. One of the best ways to do it is you pick an activity where there is a common goal, where children do need to work together. So building a tower together, guessing different scents or smells, a board game, very simple board games, a scavenger hunt is another great idea. And so you're going to start with 2 children and then you can work up to a bigger group. You're going to model the appropriate behaviors and give prompts whenever needed. So if, we're finding an item and I say, oh, Johnny found that item. That's so wonderful. Great job. But your sister Sarah helped you and gave you the clue to that. So, wow, that was awesome that you guys worked together as a team, right? Taking turns or asking for a turn. requesting the needed items. So all of these are behaviors that you should model and show that child, and then they can go and practice doing that. Again, give suggestive prompts. So tell Sarah it's her turn. Tell Johnny it's his turn. So we're giving these suggestive prompts so that this way we're not just going to be doing everything and modeling it. We want the child to go and also be able to imitate us. And if need be, we prompt them through it. One of the most amazing things that you can do is it's called catching good behavior. So you want to catch them when they're good. When a child isn't even thinking about it and they're listening, or they're sitting nicely, or they ask, for an item appropriately before taking it. You want to catch them being good and really provide amazing attention and give behavior specific praise. So if Johnny's sitting there, and he's sitting nicely and didn't steal an item from his sister Sarah, Johnny, you sat nicely. You didn't take the toy from Sarah. That's wonderful. Now, why don't you ask Sarah for the toy, because I see you're looking at it. Or if Sarah went and said, here you go, Johnny. Sarah, I love how you were sharing your toys. That is so wonderful. What a nice sister you are. Right? So you really want to catch them being good. That's the best way to reinforce that and draw attention to that, because this child then didn't even really know that they were doing anything wonderfully, and now all of a sudden they're getting praise for it. That's great. So joint attention is something that we start out with in a lot of our programs because it is a foundational skill. So joint attention is two people actively sharing attention to an object or an event while looking at each other's attention to that object and event. So two people are walking, one say, look, it's an airplane, and they both look up and they both look at each other to acknowledge, like, yep, that's an airplane, right? Fireworks, if you're not scared of them, oh, look at that firework. Oh, wow, look at the colors. And then you start to talk. So responding to attention bids and then initiating it are all part of joint attention. And this should be practiced, again, with adults at first, and then going and moving on to practicing with other peers. So you may respond to a point. That's an important foundational skill. So that's something that you want to teach your child, saying like, look at that. And they should be looking at it so that you guys can then go and have a conversation, or even just an eye gaze about it and smiles. And then it should be initiating. And children get good at initiating joint attention bids when they are trying to get your attention that there's something that they want, right? So they'll be pointing to what they want or gazing into something that they want. So that's great. That's a good initiation bid. And that's something that you want to continue to work on. Even if this child has a skill, you want to keep building this because it builds a bond between you. So a way that you can teach joint attention: gather a few of your child's favorite items or toys. Allow your child to pick one to play with. While your child is playing, say, look, and tap on another preferred toy of theirs that you gathered. Notice if their gaze shifts to the other toy. If they do, you're going to go and reinforce, oh, look at you, you looked at this one, here you go, and give them that toy. If their gaze does not shift, do an exaggerated tap, like, look, and then move the child's hand to the new toy, switch the toy. You can use a flashlight to show, like, almost like a spotlight on like what they should be looking at as well. And make sure, again, that it's preferred items. You don't want to have their attention being drawn to a non-preferred item that they don't actually like. So there's a few games on here. So it's called Set Them Up and Knock Them Down. This is one that a lot of kids love because, who doesn't love destruction? So we're going to just move through. Right, so now you're doing something fun. You're getting the child to engage in attention and so on. And then they get to have fun with that. So you want to make this as fun as possible. This next one, they're putting things under the cup and now trying to get the child into, this is a fun game. So this becomes joint attention and then following directions with adjectives and so on. So this is a little bit more complex, but all great ways to go and start getting some joint attention and then imitation. Responding to name is also another important social skill or foundational social skill, right? So if a child doesn't respond to their name, they may not get more opportunities to play with peers. So again, all it is when a child hears their name, they turn around and look, they make eye contact or fleeting eye contact or look in that direction. It's a developmental milestone for around 6 to 10 months. But again, we work with milestones and we try to work on this. And it's, like I said, a foundational social skill. So we can teach this positioning ourselves next to our child, hold a preferred item of theirs between our eyes, like right here or over here, say our child's name, give 3 to 5 seconds for a response because there may be an auditory processing disorder or so on. If your child looks at you, great, give them that specific social praise, great looking at me, and then give the preferred item. If they don't, repeat their name, and if that, then you're gonna say, so, Sarah, repeat their name again, Sarah, then take their hands, bring them up to your cheeks as a prompt to look to your eyes, and then as soon as they look near you, give that praise. You never wanna force somebody to look directly in your eyes. It's just awkward, but you do want them to look in your general direction. As soon as your child successfully responds their name while in close proximity to you, then you're going to start furthering and distancing yourself apart. So that this way, no matter where you are, your child will respond to their name. Another thing that I love referencing is Dr. Mary Lynch Barbera. She is wonderful. She is a nurse and a parent of a child on the spectrum who then became a BCBA. Her book, The Verbal Behavior Approach, is written in parent-friendly language and not BCBA-friendly language. And she is amazing. She has a YouTube page and a course, so I strongly recommend Mary Lynch Barbera. Her major point is do not link demands when calling the child's name at first. So if your child is not responding to name, don't start going and putting a demand like, Johnny, put your clothes away. No, you just want to go and just do that because you don't want your child to learn that responding to their name is not going to be fun, right? So you first want to just call out their name and have them respond to it. So again, this is a quick part that, so this is Dr. Mary Lynch Barbera.
Gradually fade your prompts by standing a foot or two farther away and by delaying the touching of his shoulder by a second or two. By using this procedure, Dennis will learn that when he hears his name, good things happen. For best results, I recommend using this procedure in both the home and school environment, and I also recommend taking data every trial for 10 or 20 trials per day, so that your distance and the reinforcement can be systematically faded out, and your client will become more successful with responding to his needs.
Okay, so like I said, Dr. Mary Lynch Barbera is great, and you want to reinforce. So again, you want that you calling your child's name to be reinforced. You want it to be, okay, he gets his name called or she gets her name called. Great, good things are happening. Then you'll start fading out reinforcement, but you never completely fade it out, right? And you can start adding demands as well. For responding to name, when you're working on this, like Dr. Mary Lynch Barbera said, you know, don't use your child's name when you want to have a demand on them. So instead of saying, Johnny, go pick up your shoes, just say, pick up your shoes, and then you can start adding in the name. Some of the mistakes, stating the child's name and not prompting to follow through on the second attempt. So again, if you're going to keep saying, like, you know, Johnny, 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 Dennis, 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 you're going to go and that child's just going to tune you out. So you want to make sure that you're going to follow through with that. Sometimes, again, when we're starting in these beginning phases, we use the child's name when reprimanding. So like, Dennis, stop, instead of just stop it. Or even better would be, instead of saying stop doing this, it would be start doing this instead. Because again, some of our kids don't know what to do instead of whatever they're doing. And another mistake is stating the name before a list of non-preferred activities, like we mentioned. So play dates are the next thing. And again, even a play date when a child is engaging in parallel play is fantastic. So whenever possible, you want to have a scheduled time period for your child to interact with other children in structured and unstructured activities. These promote generalization of skills. So anything that you and your child are working on, now they can practice them with peers. It promotes problem-solving skills, imaginative play, learning in new and natural environments. So before a formal play date, you can prepare your child by involving them with peers, even if they don't have those independent play skills yet. So even if they're not there yet, you still want to go and have your child be around other children. It's very hard to do that right now during this pandemic. I completely understand that. But you want to try a sibling or a family member. You can even try it with the screens near each other. Right? Obviously, kids love iPads, but just have two kids play next to each other, you know, through Zoom or something along these lines. It promotes toleration of being in close proximity to peers. Again, we want to be very careful with this as we get, you know, more and the levels of social distancing are, you know, playgrounds are now open and so on, but we don't want to get too close. But just having that eye contact, and again, parallel play can still be 6 feet apart whenever we can work on that. It allows your child to engage in motor movements that don't require social interactions with peers. Expose your child to these places as often as possible, teaching essential skills that are necessary for formal play dates. So again, you're going to work on this with your child at home. If they've got a sibling, even better. And then we can go and work on this on play dates, or just having them out in the environment is another way. And then the third way is to have a virtual play date. So that's something else you can do. So some of the skills that you want to try to target or try to help your child through and prompt them through is requesting items from adults and from peers. Toleration of being close to other children when it's appropriate. Playing with different types of toys functionally. So again, it's okay for your child to be able to stim with certain toys, but you want to teach them that functional play as well. Playing with sensory materials, sand, water, Play-Doh. That's often in preschools. That's the way that kids start moving through the different types of play skills. So they start out with independent, you know, on a water table, and then it's parallel play, and then it's associative play, and then it's cooperative play, all just from a water table. You want your child to be able to use manipulatives like beads or blocks, stamps, and crayons. It's very easy to then be able to start saying, okay, give, you know, Taylor the purple crayon, and then Taylor say thank you, and so on. So just promoting those social skills. Singing and acting out songs, that's a great way to do that. Playing simple games, and then engaging in outdoor and pretend play. So when we're working on selecting peers, we do want a peer to demonstrate, whenever possible, patience and understanding towards your child. So we may want to have a conversation with that peer in advance and explain that this, sometimes Taylor may not go and respond to you, but please just try anyway, and so on. So prep both children of what to expect. The peers should be able to take direction from adults and prompt your child. So peer modeling is very effective in teaching other children new skills. So again, if we can have maybe whisper to the peer, hey, tell Taylor to go and do this, and then the peer says it, that's going to be great, because then Taylor is going to follow the peer's directions instead of ours. And now we're prompting and promoting social cues and following directions from other people. Try to introduce your child to a variety of peers of both genders, age ranges as well. And look for children that have different skills and preferences, so that this way, again, we don't want a child, children that have the exact same interests to be always near each other. We want them to expand their horizons a little bit. So we can do that. Another thing is the conversation game. So we want to turn anything we can into a game, because games are fun, right? So anything we can turn into a game, that's what we want to do. So this is a way that we teach reciprocal conversation skills between two people. And to be honest, I mean, reciprocal conversation is, I ask you a question, you answer, you ask me a question, so on. I know adults that need to go and work on this game as well. But so we choose 3 favorite topics. Again, if you can find a topic that your child really is interested in, throw that in there, and then do like a non-preferred, and then one that's neutral. So color, shape, ice cream, movie character. So then I would just say, what's your favorite color? And the child's like, green. What's your favorite color? You may have to provide like a prompt for that question part. If you have a reader, I love using index cards with that instead, or a whiteboard, because fading out verbal prompts is the hardest thing to do. So it's easier for that. If you don't have a reader, just whisper it, and that's fine. And then repeat steps 1 and 2 for the other topics. After you take turns asking each other about your favorite topics, check to see if your child can then retain your favorite. So can they remember everything that you said, and kind of have like a quiz on that. And so that's a fun game. Then you can teach your child to request additional information using WH questions, right? Or who, what, when, where, and why questions. So make leading statements. So, oh, I saw someone you know today. So that this way the child is then prompted to say who. And I can say, Sarah, she was at my favorite store. Where? Trader Joe's. She was buying something really yummy for dinner. What? So when teaching, you are going to have to provide these verbal prompts initially. So like you could say what, but you should then be able to try to fade these out. One of the last things I wanted to bring up was considering social norms. So understanding neurotypical development in kids' social skills is important, because you want to meet your child where they're at developmentally, and then ensure that you're teaching prerequisite skills first. So again, if my child is 3, I don't want to be teaching them these skills that a neurotypical child wouldn't attain yet. So we need to make sure that whatever we are working on, it's not something, we're not expecting things that our children shouldn't be doing yet. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if we understand how we go from, like I said before, independent play and solitary play to associative and so on. Now that you understand those levels, we can figure out, where is your child at? Let's teach them those prerequisite skills, and then we can build from each stage. We always want to work on teaching functional social skills. So would you walk up to a random stranger and say, hi, I'm Susie, what's your name? No. So we want to kind of teach comment on the weather, complimenting their outfit. All too often people think of like, okay, well, this is the script and we're going to stick to it, but that's not necessarily what we would do in that situation. So we want to kind of be mindful of that. Same thing, I don't want, my child to run up to strangers and say that. So teaching children when it's appropriate to do that as well is helpful. And we always want to look about function over form. So inappropriate interactions are sometimes actually the most successful. And especially with kids. My nephew's turning 5 this week, and he is all about poop talk and toilet humor right now. It's gross to us, but that's what kids love. So it may be inappropriate for us, but if it's going to get kids laughing and talking, then we're going to let it happen. You want to refrain from interrupting as long as everyone's safe and not laughing at someone, and that the topic is not wildly inappropriate, right? And focus less on the formality and manners during peer-to-peer interactions. You want to just, in the beginning especially, whatever they've got, let's just be excited about that they're interacting and that they're making eye contact, or even that they're just looking at another child. So in the beginning, again, don't focus on those manners and the formalities. Even with sharing is not necessarily what is a neurotypical child is going to be doing at certain ages. So if there's going to be a fight over a toy, that's still an interaction. And so that's still a learning opportunity to teach your child, like, oh, well, sometimes if you both want the toy, what could we do instead? You know, we could go and do this, or, you know, there's many things that we can teach from that. So before I open it up to questions, these are just our references. Again, I mentioned Dr. Mary Lynch Barbera. She's wonderful. And I strongly suggest that you look into anything for her. If you do have questions that I cannot answer, or that maybe we didn't have time for, you can email us. Oh, I just realized the Achieve Beyond part is over my email, but my general information line is info@achievebeyondusa.com. We actually have been offering for our current clients that get ABA therapy, we actually have been having virtual social skills groups, and that's something that we plan on continuing, because we don't see, you know, a healthy and safe way for our kids to have in-person social skills groups. But that is something that we also were offering, was social skills groups. So that is a good way if you have a local social skills group, you know, or something that you can work on, that's great. If you want more information about ours, give us a call, or you can email. If you'd like more information that I can help you with, my name is Tara Karen. My email address is just tkaren@achievebeyondusa.com. And I guess we can open it up for questions.
Yes, thank you, Tara. We received a few questions, but for anyone that is here, please just put them in the chat. Krista, we are going to send out the resources and whatnot afterwards, if that's helpful, just so that you know. I just saw your question in the chat. First question that we received from someone was someone asking, my 14-year-old son has wonderful social skills when it comes to adults, but with kids his age, he's no interest or almost seems annoyed. Do you have any advice on the kind of age gap?
Yeah. So it's you have to pair, again, why would I want to go to somebody who is very unpredictable and I don't know anything about them, and they're not going to give me the same reactions that an adult will. So what you would need to do is what we explained before, is pair that peer with reinforcement. So if you've got somebody in mind, great. Find out what are the interests that your 14-year-old has. Let's see if we can get them in that. A lot of 14-year-olds like video games. There are, I know on Long Island at least there's one, but there's a video gaming club for people on the spectrum. So that might be something you want to do. So find the common interests, and then you want to prep the peer to be able to provide your child with reinforcement, right? So if your child really likes, you know, Minecraft, then you want to prep that peer with, you know, knowing about Minecraft and being able to talk to them about it. And then if there's anything that they can then give them to kind of pair themselves with good things, your child will trust that person a little bit more. They will want to involve themselves with them a little more. So you basically have to make it so that their peers are just as reinforcing as you are. No easy task for sure, but definitely a way to think about it is, what can you go and pair them with, so that this way, instead of becoming somebody that's like aversive, that peer actually becomes fun and exciting to them.
Great, thank you. Another person asked about increasing their child's motivation to play. I know that you talked a lot about reinforcement in the beginning. Yes. Is there anything else that you'd like to, you know, add to that? I think we got a few questions about just this motivation piece.
Right, motivation is key. It's the key to life. So what I would do is kind of observe your child. What are they doing? What are they into? A lot of my parents will say, oh, well, they only like the iPad. Okay, but what are they watching on the iPad? So whatever they're watching on the iPad, let's try to mimic that outside of the iPad. So if it's Power Rangers, then let's get Power Ranger costumes or dolls and let's try to pretend and we'll play with them. If they're watching, the videos of opening toys and gifts, then let's go and wrap it. You don't even have to buy something new. Literally take whatever they've got, wrap it in a box and do your own unboxing. So whatever it is that your child is drawn to, that's reinforcing for them. That's what's motivating to them. That's what we want to use. Dora, right? Dora used to be so big, and we had a kid who we thought the only thing that they liked was watching Dora. So we started getting Dora storybooks and Dora coloring books and anything you could think of. And then just even singing the songs, right? Not when they're watching it, a separate time, and just look to see, do they kind of perk up? Do they have that joint attention? Great, that's our foundational skills. Now we're going to build up to it. I think another mistake that parents made is that we want to rush from this to this. So if I've got my child playing functionally by themselves, then I all of a sudden want them to have 3 peers that they're playing the same thing with. We can't rush that. We have to get our kids through each of these stages so that this way they'll get there.
That's great. Thank you, Tara. Another question is just prepping or any tips that you might have to help a child before leaving the house, specifically with any family or group outings.
Yes, I think, just the thing of prepping is just such a very good way to go and put it. And I think we do need to go through everything. When I am going food shopping, I have to make a list. Otherwise, I'm going to run out and I'm going to buy every piece of junk food that's in the store, right? So I need to prep myself before I go there. I need to go through the steps before I leave the house of let me check to see what I have in my fridge. Let me check where am I going, write everything down. So it's the same thing with social skills or with expectations. We want to prep our kids, neurotypical, on the spectrum, whomever. This is what I expect from you, right? So before we go out, okay, we're going to go to, Ava's birthday party. There's going to be a lot of kids there. If it's too much and you need a break, I want you to just run up to me and say, I need a break. And then we'll go to a quiet place. If somebody, hits you or yells too loud, just come and talk to me, or you can say this. So just giving those expectations beforehand is great. I know some people like social stories, so that's something else that you can work on if your child responds to that, right? Is just creating my name is, I am, and I always like to include something about I am a strong and smart little girl. I have, when I go here, I need to make sure that I remember to do X, Y, and Z. So whatever you want to do, you want to go and make sure that whatever behaviors you don't want to see, you want to prep that child for what they need to do instead. Same thing wherever they go anywhere. So I think that's good. You might want to, sometimes we get a little reminder card, write them down or laminate it, whatever you want to do, whiteboard. We all use lists, we all use reminders. So those are great ways that you can go and do that and prep them beforehand.
Yeah, okay, great. We just received another question asking about how to work with behaviors that might interrupt or disrupt others in a larger environment. For example, random screaming. Random screaming,
right. So again, I think there's usually a reason for the screams, right? They're not, it's almost always that something is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. So we need to identify those. As a BCBA, what I do is a functional analysis to try to find out what's the function of the behavior. And then I don't want to just avoid everything, but I want to find out why they're doing it so that this way I can help a child to go and not scream, because nobody wants screaming. Screaming is a sign of distress. So what can we do to take that stress away? There is another great book. Oh, let me see. Actually, I do have it. If you have over here, it's Functional Behavior Assessment for People with Autism, Making Sense of Seemingly Senseless Behavior. Here, let me put that on my camera. And it's by Beth Glassberg. And again, this is another parent-friendly book. So if your child is randomly screaming, it's probably not random. This will help you to do what's called a functional analysis. You should consult a BCBA. But it's basically why, the whys. If we can find the function, then we can create strategies to do that. Now, if your child is screaming or before, again, you want to prep them. If things are overwhelming and you feel like you need to scream, you should run to me and we will go somewhere safe, or things like that. So prepping is always key. Being proactive is key. If it's already happening, again, disruptive, every kid screams. So I wouldn't worry about the other kids. They're going to be fine. Like it's going to be fine. But let's go and also prep the kids. Hey, you know what? Again, Taylor isn't always great with sharing. So if Taylor starts to scream, you don't have to run away or do this. Just say, Taylor, do you not want us to share, take your toys or something like that. So you can prep the other children as well. But again, the name of the game is probably being proactive and finding out how can you help your child to avoid that.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And then working with their BCBA to figure out how to change that behavior.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. And then the final question that we'll ask today, because I'm conscious of time, is from an educator standpoint, how can educators help support teaching social skills in a classroom environment?
Yes, that's great. That's wonderful. First, it's wonderful that you want to help that. So that's great. I think there are really great resources. Jed Baker has a lot of social skills games that he's put out. But basically, it's, again, notice, observe your children, observe the children that you're working with, and then adding in little games or little things, again, setting expectations and then reinforcing them when they occur. So setting up opportunities for children to play more. That's a wonderful, making sure that every child has to kind of share. Now, again, if we go back into school, we do have to be careful about sharing objects and so on, but turn-taking games, all these different things, and then just being aware and reinforcing the good. So catching kids when they're good is a great way to just keep reinforcing social skills.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well, Tara, we'd like to thank you so much for your time today and all the great information that you shared with us. We'd also like to thank everyone for attending. As mentioned, we will be sending out the recording as well as the list of resources that you've been able to provide us with. And we'll also include Tara and Achieve Beyond's information in that email as well, so that you can contact them directly with any questions that you may have.
Yes, absolutely. And if you want, I can send the PowerPoint over.
That would be amazing. Yeah, we'll include everything. Well, thank you guys so much. And Tara, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, and we hope everyone stays safe.